These 13 true stories of horror will leave you speechless. Number 13. Loftus Hall. There are many places around the world that are considered to be haunted, but few of them are as terrifying as Loftus Hall. This old building has a lot of dark secrets that have been slowly revealed over the years since it was abandoned. Many people are drawn to this place, including those who don't believe in ghosts, because they want to see if there's anything really going on here. In fact, most people who go there say that they feel uneasy, and some even claim to have seen ghosts or other supernatural creatures while visiting. One particular story about the hall is especially captivating. It involves two teenagers who went exploring in the basement when they heard chains dragging metal moans. Then they saw a ghost dragging itself closer and closer towards them. They didn't stick around to find out what it wanted, though. Instead, they ran back upstairs and locked themselves in a room. But then strange things started happening all around them. Lights flickered, books fell off shelves, and scratching sounds echoed throughout the halls. The teens stayed quiet and still hoping that whatever was out there would eventually get bored and go away. And for a while it seemed like their plan was working. But then the door slowly began to open by itself. The teens screamed and tried to run away, but it was too late. Whatever had been haunting them in the basement had found them and dragged them down into the darkness. Nobody knows what happened to those two teenagers, but some believe they were taken by the very same ghost that had been haunting the rest of the guests at Loftus Hall. Number 12. Elisa Lam. The mysterious death of Elisa Lam has left people talking for years. This young woman was found dead in her hotel room after a bizarre series of events. Her family and friends were shocked to receive a call from the police telling them she had been found lifeless in the bottom of her hotel room's water tank. But the strangest part of the story is that no one knows how she got there. The only evidence that could have shed some light on her untimely demise was a grainy surveillance tape that showed her entering the elevator to her floor, but nothing after that. There was no sign of forced entry into the room, and no obvious signs of trauma on her body. It's unclear whether or not foul play was involved, but what we do know is that Elisa's death is still being investigated today. While the media has largely moved on from this case, those close to it are still searching for answers. With so much mystery surrounding the circumstances of her passing, we may never truly know what happened to this bright young mind until more evidence comes to light. Number 11. The Myrtles Plantation. There are few places in the world as haunted as the Myrtles Plantation. This historic home has been the site of many unexplained phenomena, from ghostly apparitions to disembodied voices. One guest even reported seeing a full-bodied apparition of a woman in a nightgown walking through the halls. When they asked her if she was real, she simply stared back at them and then disappeared. Many people who have visited the Myrtles Plantation have reported feeling an overwhelming sense of dread and sadness while on the property. Some have even claimed to be touched by an invisible force that has left bruises or scratches on their skin. Number 10. Creepy mortician stories. Morticians deal with death on a daily basis, so it should come as no surprise that they have some truly creepy stories to tell. From dead bodies that move on their own to unexpected visitors in the middle of the night. These stories are sure to send chills down your spine. One mortician told the story of a time when he was embalming a body, and the dead person suddenly sat up and started talking to him. Another mortician shared the story of a time when he was working late at night and he heard footsteps in the embalming room. He turned around and saw the ghost of a little girl standing there. Some morticians even claim to have seen ghosts or other supernatural beings while working. If these stories are true, then there is definitely something creepy going on in the world of mortuaries. Number 9. Where reality blurs with nightmares. Sometimes the line between reality and nightmares is razor thin. Just ask anyone who has experienced a terrifying event that they couldn't quite believe was happening. From sudden attacks to mysterious accidents, these stories show just how quickly our worst fears can become reality. In some cases, the aftermath of these events is even more disturbing. Victims are often left with physical or psychological scars that serve as constant reminders of their trauma. It's a sobering thought to consider that these stories could have happened to any one of us, and it's a reminder to always be prepared for the unexpected. Number 8. Phantom student tales. If you've ever spent time in an old building, you might have heard a few spooky stories about the place. Perhaps there are rumors of ghosts or strange noises that keep the night shift workers up at night. Well, it turns out that these stories aren't just limited to fiction. In fact, many of the most famous ghost stories ever told are said to have taken place in real life. One particularly creepy tale comes from students who have spent the night in haunted dormitories. According to legend, these students often hear the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth just outside their rooms. But when they open the door, they find nothing there. In some cases, the ghost is said to be the spirit of a former student who died tragically in the dorm. Others believe that the ghost is simply the soul of a restless teenager who refuses to move on. Whatever the case may be, these stories are enough to make anyone afraid of the dark think twice before spending a night alone in a haunted building. Number 7. Nightmares of ghostly accusations. Do you ever get the feeling that someone is watching you? It's a common fear that many people experience. But what happens when you realize that the person watching you is a ghost? Imagine sitting in your room at night when suddenly you hear footsteps pacing back and forth just outside your door. You open it and find nothing there. Then the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and you feel a cold breeze despite the closed windows. As you turn to leave, you see a shadowy figure standing in the corner of your room. It reaches out toward you with accusing finger. Paralyzed with fear, you watch as it begins to speak. Its voice a raspy whisper that sends shivers down your spine. Before you can react, it disappears. If you've ever had a similar experience, then you know how terrifying it can be. And if you haven't, then count yourself lucky. These stories are enough to make anyone's blood run cold. No. 6. Spooky dorm room. If you've ever stayed up late in your dorm, you've probably heard some spooky stories from your roommates. Maybe there are rumors of ghosts or strange noises that keep the night shift workers up at night. Well, it turns out that these stories aren't just limited to fiction. In fact, many of the most famous ghost stories ever told are said to have taken place in real life. One particularly creepy tale comes from students who have stayed in haunted dormitories. According to legend, these students often hear the sound of footsteps pacing back and forth just outside their rooms. But when they open the door, they find nothing there. Nothing. In some cases, the ghost is said to be the spirit of a former student who died tragically in the dorm. Others believe that the ghost is simply the soul of a restless teenager who refuses to move on. Whatever the case may be, these stories are enough to make anyone afraid of the dark think twice before spending a night alone in a haunted building. Number 5. The ghost pulling. Someone from their bed. One night, a young woman was sleeping in her bed when she felt something strange. She could have sworn that someone or something was pulling her down onto the floor. Although terrified, she held on tightly to the sheets and refused to let herself be pulled down into the darkness. As the struggle continued, she began to cry out for help, but no one could hear her screams. Just when she thought she might be pulled down to the floor, the sensation suddenly stopped. She lay there frozen in fear until morning, too afraid to move or make a sound. The next day, she told her friends and family about her experience, but no one believed her. They thought she had simply had a bad dream or perhaps been sleepwalking. But she knew what she had experienced was something more sinister. To this day, she still remembers the feeling of being pulled down into the darkness and the sound of her own cries for help echoing in her ears. 4. Creepy footsteps. Imagine you're home alone at night when you hear a knock on the door. You ignore it, assuming it's just the wind. But then you hear it again, louder this time. Footsteps. You listen intently, trying to determine where the sound is coming from. They seem to be coming from right outside your bedroom door. You get up cautiously and approach the door. As you reach for the doorknob, the footsteps stop. Was it your imagination? You shake off the thought and go back to bed. But just as you're drifting off to sleep, you hear it again, this time even closer. You sit up in bed, listening intently. Are those footsteps getting closer? Suddenly, there's a loud bang followed by the sound of breaking glass. You jump out of bed and turn on all the lights. But when you go to investigate, you find nothing. Your heart is racing. Your hands are shaking. You try to convince yourself that there's a logical explanation for what you've heard, but you can't help but feel a sense of dread and foreboding. Number 3. Common threads. True horror stories often share common threads, exploring our deepest fears and tapping into our primal anxieties. They remind us of the fragility of life and the unknown perils that may lie ahead. From tales of haunted houses to stories of terrifying creatures, these narratives delve into the darkest corners of the human psyche, confronting us with our mortality and the mysteries of the universe. Whether they're based on real events or purely fictional, true horror stories have the power to captivate and terrify us, leaving us questioning the nature of fear and the limits of human endurance. Number 2. Unbelievable yet true. In a world where we're constantly bombarded with fake news and clickbait, it can be difficult to separate fact from fiction. But every once in a while, a story comes along that is so unbelievable, it just has to be true. From a Russian nesting doll that was found to contain a tiny human skeleton, to a mummy that was discovered to be pregnant, these are the kinds of stories that make you question everything you thought you knew about the world. But despite their shocking nature, these stories have been verified by experts and are completely factual. So the next time you think you've heard it all, remember that there's always something new and amazing waiting to be discovered. Number 1. Real-life horror. Real-life horror tales are stories that blur the lines between fiction and reality, immersing readers in chilling accounts of actual events. These narratives often draw upon personal experiences, urban legends, and mysterious occurrences that defy rational explanation, leaving listeners on the edge of their seats, questioning the boundaries of the possible. From ghostly encounters to unexplained phenomena, real-life horror showcases the darker aspects of human existence and the unsettling realities that lurk within our everyday lives. These stories serve as a reminder that sometimes the truth is scarier than fiction,